I'd like to welcome you all here. It is January 6th. It is the festival of the Epiphany. We're going to do a little musical reflection on 3 hymns, a reading from St. Matthew, and a reflection from a sermon from Martin Luther. So glad that you could be with us. Gospel according to St. Matthew. In the time of King Herod, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem asking, "Where is this child who has been born King of the Jews? For we have observed his star at its rising, and we have come to pay him homage." When King Herod heard this, he was frightened, and all Jerusalem with him. And calling together all the chief priests and the scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Messiah was to be born. They told him, "In Bethlehem of Judea, for so it has been written by the prophet. And you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah. For from you shall come a ruler who is to shepherd my people Israel." Then Herod secretly called for the wise men and learned from them the exact place where the star had appeared. Then he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, "Go and search diligently for the child, and when you have found him, bring me word so that I may go and pay him homage." When they heard the king, they went out, and there ahead of them went the star they had seen at its rising, until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw that the star had stopped, they were overwhelmed with joy. On entering the house, they saw the child Mary with his mother, and they knelt down and paid him homage. Then, opening their treasure chests, they offered him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they left for their own country by another road. The Gospel of the Lord. And a reflection from a sermon from Martin Luther. Then Herod, when he had privately called for these wise men, inquired of them diligently what time the star had appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem and said, "Go, search diligently for the child. When you have found him, bring me word that I may go and worship him." We can see from this text that these wise men were not kings or princes, but merely honorable people like a professor or a preacher. Herod treated them as subjects when he commanded them to go to Bethlehem and bring him word. He would not have done this had they been kings or lords. He would have instead invited them to dine, would have accompanied them on their way with royal treatment. For all the history says that Herod was a smooth man who observed the etiquette of the courts. Since he summoned them secretly, they must have been a much lower station. But why secretly? Was not all the land his under his control? perhaps because he knew that the people hated him. And had he been interviewing the wise men in public, they might have sought to induce the wise men to mislead him that this new king might slip through his fingers. He had inquired to the exact appearance of the star because he had already made up his mind to slaughter the innocent. He thought to himself, if a new king is born, then all the people will be glad. They will hide him until he is grown up, and they will bring him to light, and then they will kill me. Therefore I must get ahead of them and inquire warily. If he's hidden, I will catch him away by killing all the children at the same time. To carry out this crafty decision, he represented himself to the Magi as a very humble and reverent person desiring to worship. When they heard the king, they departed, and the star which they saw in the east went before them till it stood over the place where the young child was. When they saw the star, they rejoiced with an exceeding joy. And when they had come into the house, they saw a young child with Mary his mother, and they fell down and paid him homage. When they had opened their treasure chest, they gave him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Though these wise men saw a tumble-down shack and a poor young woman and a little babe, not a king at all, lowly, more lowly than one of their own servants, they did not shrink, but in great faith cast out all misgivings of common sense, and following simply the word of the prophet and the witness of a star, they accepted this one as a king, and they fell on their knees and worshipped him and presented their treasures. The world would not have done so, but according to her wont would have looked for a velvet cushion and a host of servants and maids. The world makes presents to those who already have enough, and to provide them snatches the bread from the mouths of the hungry who have nothing but what they earn with their bloody sweat. If we Christians were to join the wise men, we must close our eyes to all that glitters before the world and look rather upon foolish things. Help the poor, comfort the despised, aid the neighbor in need. Do not boast that you have built churches and endowed masses. God will say, what use are your churches and masses to me? I do not care about your altars and your bells. Is not heaven my throne and earth the footstool of my feet? Who told you to build these things? I have set before you spiritual temples. These you should build, feed, and help, but you've gone about doing foolish things, to which I commanded you not. I know you not. Let us then observe how these wise men took no offense at the lowly estate of the babe and his parents, so that we may not be offended at the low estate of our neighbor, but rather see Christ in our neighbor. Since the kingdom of Christ is to be found among the lowly and the despised, and those who are persecuted, those who are miserable, and to see there the holy cross. Those who seek Christ anywhere else find him not. The wise men discovered him not at Herod's, not with the high priests, not in the great city of Jerusalem, but in Bethlehem, in a stable with lowly folk, with Mary and Joseph. In a word, they found him where he would be least expected. We can present our gifts in the same way as the Lord says, inasmuch as you have done to the least of these, you have done to me. The one who gives their goods to help the poor, to send children to school, to educate them, and other acts that we might have good and godly folk, he is giving to us the baby Jesus. He was not only born poor and needy, but also, on account of Herod, at once had to flee the country. On the journey to Egypt, he presents the wise men must have come in very handy, those presents. So in our day, we should not forget those who are suffering persecution or who are homeless. Reading from Luther.